The Seahawks had a couple of players added to the injury report. My name is Joe Dolan, and this is the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup for Friday, December 9th, 2022.
It's time for the FantasyPoints.com Daily Lineup. Staying on top of the latest news and updates around the NFL. Rise and shine, folks. We're taking the field. Here's your host, FantasyPoints.com's Joe Dolan.
Speaking of the injury report, you ever wake up and you have pain down your entire arm and you have no idea where it came from and you can't pinpoint exactly where it's from? I think mine's from the wrist, but when I go up and press my wrist, it resonates up to my shoulder. I don't know what's going on. I'm old. It stinks. I'm sick of this. Anyway, starting at quarterback in week 9, we hope is Geno Smith. Geno was added to the Seahawks injury report on Thursday with a right shoulder injury. This is a midweek downgrade, of course, which we never like on this program. It's to his throwing shoulder. Yikes. Now, there's no indication yet that this is something to worry about, but we do need to watch on Friday for Geno's status. Now, what complicating matters is the fact that DK Metcalf was also added with a hip injury on the heels of his second 100-yard game of the season. The Seahawks offense, which has been one of the cleanest for fantasy because you just kind of play everybody every week, is all of a sudden banged up. Ken Walker and DJ Dallas don't look like they're going to be able to go in the backfield because of their ankle injuries, while Travis Homer, after missing last week with a knee and an illness, has been elevated to a full practice participant on Thursday. So maybe Travis Homer leads this backfield, but hopefully, if Walker and Dallas can't play, it's in an offense that has Geno Smith pulling the trigger and throwing the ball to DK Metcalf. This is something to watch on Friday afternoon. Never liked those midweek downgrades. We'll get to one of them later, by the way. In our first running back spot, Joe Mixon looks like he's on his way back. Bengals head coach Zach Taylor confirmed on Thursday that Mixon cleared the NFL's concussion protocol last week. This is per Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic. After practicing fully on Wednesday, Mixon is now on track to end his 2-game absence this Sunday against the Browns. And, of course, it happens to be a glorious matchup against a Browns run defense that has been getting absolutely shredded of late. What is notable, though, of course, is that the Bengals have gotten a fantastic performance in back-to-back weeks from Samaje Perine in Mixon's place. Perine's averaging 124 yards from scrimmage over the last 2 games that Mixon missed. And Cincinnati could well choose to preserve Joe Mixon for the playoffs. Now, it's possible we could also see the Bengals choose to scale up Perine's involvement, if not to 50-50, maybe to 60-40. Look, if Mixon's back this week, you've got to play him in this matchup. It's a great matchup. But it's certainly no guarantee he'll get the workload we've come to expect or even anywhere close to it. So I think Perine's also on the flex radar. In our second running back spot, is DeAndre Swift's return as an RB1 short-lived? Swift was upgraded to a full practice participant on Thursday from the ankle injury that limited him on Wednesday. But here's the rub. He wasn't even on the injury report last week. Now, in week 13, of course, Swift led Jamal Williams in 4 carries with 14 to the latter's 11 and corralled 4 of his 6 targets for 49 yards. It was the first time since week 1 that he saw more than 7 carries. But here is what's alarming. Justin Rogers of the Detroit News mentioned on Twitter yesterday that, quote, Swift was back to a full practice participant after being limited yesterday. That meaning Wednesday. That high ankle sprain from week 1 is still causing him issues. I wouldn't be surprised to see the workload dialed back a little again after matching season-high 18 touches against Jacksonville. So Swift, ever so briefly, was looking like an RB1. Can we trust it now? I'm probably giving him a slight downgrade. Now at wide receiver 1, is Deontay Johnson going to miss? Johnson was listed as a non-participant on Thursday with a hip injury, a downgrade from Wednesday. Now, Coach Mike Tomlin did mention the Steelers would be managing injuries this week, but ESPN's Brooke Pryor called Johnson's absence, quote, the most concerning of the Steelers' DNPs on Thursday. I find this interesting in particular because of, naturally, George Pickens. Pickens was openly upset about his lack of targets against the Falcons last week when he caught just one pass for 2 yards on 2 looks. Mike Tomlin, of course, is an old school coach, and I'm feeling a grease the squeaky wheel situation here. Here's what Tomlin said this week about Pickens being openly upset. We want that guy. This is professional football. I'm not going to make that a negative. And this week's matchup with the Ravens is also interesting. The Ravens cornerbacks play sides, and the Steeler wide receivers don't. Pickens plays right wide receiver about 47% of the time and left wide receiver 40% of the time. But that still means the plurality of his routes will be lined up on the Ravens' left corner, who happens to be Marcus Peters. Peters aligns over the right wide receiver about 90% of the time. And over the last 5 weeks, Peters is giving up 0.48 fantasy points per coverage snap, the third most among 105 qualified corners. I'm not even sure the Texans have a player to fill out our wide receiver 2 spot. Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network suggests that Nico Collins with a foot injury is trending towards missing Sunday's game against the Cowboys. Yikes. And with Brandon Cooks also likely to miss with a calf injury and potentially just shut himself down for the rest of the year, whom will Davis Mills be throwing to? It's a brutal matchup against Dallas, and though Mills is the Texans' best chance to win, it will likely be another feather in their cap towards securing the number 1 overall pick. The Texans are basically a cross-off team for fantasy right now, especially in this matchup. And once again in our flex spot, missing his second straight practice on Thursday, is the Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence. Now, as I mentioned on yesterday's program, Lawrence indicated on Wednesday that his left big toe feels better at this stage than it has over the past few days, from Michael Duraco of ESPN. But now he's logged back-to-back DNPs on both Wednesday and Thursday to rest the injury. Now, of course, as we well know, the injury looked way worse than just a toe injury. So the fact that we're just debating on whether or not Lawrence can play in this weekend's game is fantastic. All that matters for the Jags last week, despite getting blown out by the Lions, is that Lawrence was back. Any potential short-term absences are secondary to that. But if Lawrence cannot play this week, we do have to note it is a glorious matchup for C.J. Beathard. The Titans are very banged up in the secondary. Christian Fulton's hurt, and Elijah Molden's on IR. That's good news for both Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. The Jaguars are not going to be stupid with their franchise quarterback. If Lawrence can practice Friday, he's got a shot to go this weekend. If not, they'll turn to Beathard, who's a decent backup. I'm Joe Dolan. This has been another week of the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup. I want to thank everybody for bearing with me as we've dealt with some pet issues. Things do pop up, unfortunately, during the football season, which makes them 10 times worse. But hey, this is a free show, so you know, who am I to break my back? But I appreciate everybody watching. I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate everybody reading fantasypoints.com. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy it.